An angry crowd demands the death of a witch. They blame her for corrupting a knight with her evil magic. They want her gone from their holy land. After all the battles she fought for the kingdom, this is how they repay her, by crucifying and burning her. Even in pain, the witch wishes for her homeland to thrive for 1,000 generations. A boy named Chiba is at an interview to rent a small apartment. He wants a place for 30,000 yen, which is very cheap, especially for Tokyo. Surprisingly, the agent tells him he might have just the place. It's a furnished apartment with utilities included, right in the center of Tokyo, and the rent is just 20,000 yen. But the agent warns him. There are strange stories about this apartment. Chiba doesn't care. He doesn't believe in ghosts or monsters. So they schedule a visit. Later, Chiba arrives at the apartment. He thinks it looks like a mausoleum, but for that price, he can't complain. The agent says the house was inspired by European architecture. For example, the ceiling beams are handmade with imported European wood. Then the man mentions, the wood supposedly came from the site of a witch execution. At least that's the legend. But Chiba doesn't care about legends. He just wants a cheap place. Outside, a strange man is watching them. He looks like a ghost. Chiba feels the man's intense stare, like he's being judged. Chiba quickly closes the window and tells the agent someone's staring at them. But the man calmly says, strange things are normal here, especially in this room. He says he feels a strong evil presence here. The agent warns Chiba again to find another place. But Chiba is sure. He wants this one. The agent gives up. Chiba signs the contract happily. After all, he'd never find such a cheap place in Tokyo. A week later, it's Chiba's first day in his new home. Time to unpack. He's just arrived when he hears a strange noise. It's a creepy voice. Still, for 20,000 yen, he's willing to tolerate some weird sounds. That night, nothing else happens. Until later when he hears the voice again. This time it says, kill. Chiba finds it strange. It's like the ghost is too lazy and wants someone else to do the job. The voice keeps bothering him until Chiba yells, I'm not doing what you say. Suddenly, he sees a girl trapped on the ceiling, with two priests about to hurt her. One of them strikes her with something like a whip. She screams in pain, but Chiba isn't focused on her pain. He just wants to know what's going on. He grabs one of the stranger's arms, but the ghost's arm turns to dust and both of them vanish. Chiba is stunned. He's sure it's a dream, but not just any dream, something special. To him, it'd be a waste not to enjoy this kind of dream. The girl asks if he's the new inquisitor. She says he's wasting his time. She'll never lose her faith. Chiba looks at her eyes, pure and determined. He thanks her for accepting a pure offering. He picks up her gear. The girl is shocked. She can barely speak, but Chiba is enjoying this. Apparently, these are his methods. The knight says she won't lose faith no matter what. She refuses to give up, but then he touches her skin directly and maybe it's too much for her. Tears start forming in her eyes. All Chiba can think is, her skin is so soft. This is the first time something like this is happening to him. He thinks this might be the happiest day of his life. Finally, he lets her go. The knight tells him that he touched demons and survived, so maybe he's blessed somehow. But Chiba ignores her. He lifts her blouse. She warns him to stop, but he grabs her two weak spots, and that's too much for her. Chiba is surprised by her unexpected reaction. To him, the warrior made a cute sound. The girl says she wants to die, because only someone truly evil could smile like that. Chiba remembers this is a dream, so he thinks he can do whatever he wants. With full confidence, he asks the girl to be his girlfriend. Of course, she says no, very bluntly. Desperate after being rejected, he hides somewhere he wasn't supposed to. Chiba even starts crying, saying not even in his dreams can he get a girlfriend. Even the girl has stopped resisting the strange pleasure. He feels something enter his mouth. He doesn't know what it is, but it feels good. Now the dream feels too real, and he begins to question if it's really just a dream. The girl can't take it anymore. She doesn't even want to live. Suddenly, a strange energy fills the house. She somehow escapes from where she was trapped. She introduces herself. She is the Holy Knight Margaret, and by her authority, she sentences him. Then, she summons her sacred sword. But to Chiba, it looks more like a demonic weapon. Margaret has never been tested like this before. Her faith has never been so shaken. She hopes this is a dream, because everything feels way too real. With her holy sword, she pierces Chiba's chest. He definitely feels it. He falls to the ground, unable to move. There's no pain, but he can't feel his lips either. Chiba can only pray, thinking this is the end. Several days later, even though Chiba thought he had died somehow, he's still breathing. Now he must get used to his new routine, school, and his new haunted home. Maybe it really was just a dream, a crazy nightmare caused by the cursed apartment. But then reality hits. Margaret is there, welcoming him home. She says the curry is ready. Chiba asks if it's boiled, and she says, yes, it's the only way I know how to cook. She learned from watching TV. She proudly presents her food, but Chiba begs her to stop cooking and move on to the afterlife. But she reminds him again. She won't leave until she removes the sacred sword from inside him. She sticks her hand into his chest, and the sword hilt appears. She pulls it to one side. Nothing. She pulls to the other side, and Chiba begs her to stop. That's how things are now. After receiving the sword in his heart, he's still alive. In fact, he has absorbed the sacred blade. With that settled, she asks if he'll eat the curry. They sit down to eat together. She takes a big spoonful, and it's so spicy it feels like lava. But Margaret doesn't even flinch. Then, she explains what happened. That night, Chiba's powerful spiritual energy merged with hers, giving her a physical form. In return, his body absorbed the holy sword. To Margaret, her sword is more important than her own life. She says if he wants her gone, he'll have to help her recover the sword. Until then, she's staying. And she won't pay rent either, since he grabbed her, even if he insists he thought it was a dream. That's how they began living together, with Margaret calling him a rat who stole her sword. Margaret quietly watches TV in the living room. In the show, one boy insults another. They punch each other, but then become friends. This gives her an idea of how school works in this world. At school, someone calls out to Chiba. An outgoing boy invites him to karaoke. Chiba can't remember his name. The boy notices and introduces himself. Paris Knight. A name no one should forget, he says. Paris heard Chiba lives alone, yet always rushes home after school. Chiba lies and says he actually lives with his sister. Paris suggests they hang out more since they'll be classmates for the year, but Chiba already knows the truth. Paris just wants to use his apartment as a hangout spot, so Chiba refuses, saying karaoke won't do him any good, and even gives Paris a tip. Save your money for something useful. Back home, Chiba says, I'm home. Margaret welcomes him and asks if he found a sparring partner at school. To Chiba, all the boys at school are idiots with spiky hair and piercings everywhere. He only chose this school because it's far from his parents' house and because the academic level is low, so hanging out is just a waste of time. More importantly, he asks when his guest will finally move on. But despite everything, there's been no progress. To Chiba, Margaret is just wasting time. She should pass on already. Margaret agrees, but calls him a dishonest rat and a sword thief. Maybe it would be easier just to end Chiba's life. She pulls a blade out of his body and says she'll use what she learned on TV about frying a fish on him. Terrified, Chiba runs out of the house, leaving her behind. Just like always, a coward. In the end, Chiba still believes the girl is an evil spirit. Chiba promises to buy some food, hoping it'll calm Margaret down. He continues walking alone through the streets. Eventually, he finds himself in a part of the city he's never seen before. It feels like he's in an entirely different town. The smaller, quieter atmosphere actually makes him feel better. But then, he accidentally bumps into someone. It's a delinquent with an unfriendly face, and the guy gets completely soaked. Chiba tries to apologize, but the delinquent refuses to accept it. He demands 500,000 yen for his shirt. Obviously, Chiba thinks that's ridiculous. Unfortunately, he gets beaten up in the alley. The delinquent says, this is a lesson. A kid should know what happens when he messes with an adult. Then he takes Chiba's wallet as compensation. Suddenly, a voice asks if Chiba really isn't going to fight back. He looks up and sees Margaret standing beside him in full armor. She asks if he's really going to let the guy walk away like that. But Chiba says there's no point in fighting someone clearly stronger. Only fools do that. In his opinion, bravery in today's world doesn't solve anything. Meanwhile, the delinquent notices there's a lot of cash in Chiba's wallet. As he counts it, someone else shows up. Someone Chiba didn't expect to see. It's his classmate, Paris. Paris tries to snatch the wallet back from the thug. Chiba can't believe it. But Paris gets punched in the face. The thug tells him to back off. Still, Paris tries again. Another punch. Paris fights back and demands an apology, but gets hit again. Margaret asks Chiba if he knows this kid, but Chiba isn't even listening. He's just confused. Why is Paris doing this? Paris shouts that the money the thug is stealing was meant for his friend's food at home, but the thug ignores him. Margaret says Paris is fighting without any chance of winning, just to protect a friend. Chiba feels terrible. He asks himself if Paris is being brave or just foolish. The thug finally gets tired of the boy's stubbornness. He gives Chiba's wallet back, but only in exchange for Paris's wallet. Paris agrees to the trade. Chiba watches all of this until he can't stay still anymore. He jumps on the thug, not wanting him to hurt Paris anymore. The thug is surprised, but still punches Chiba. That's when Margaret steps in. She tells Chiba to prepare himself. She pulls the sword hilt from his chest and charges at the thug. Before anyone can react, she strikes the man with her sword, sending him flying. He hits the ground, defeated. Then the blade vanishes again. The thug is knocked out cold. The two boys stand there, speechless. They both scream in surprise, but the thug starts to move again. Apparently, he's still alive. though it looked like he'd visited the afterlife and come back. Worst of all, he stepped in dog poop and fell in it too. As if things couldn't get worse, two men who look like Yakuza appear. They say they've finally found him. The delinquent's expression says it all. He looks like he's already dead inside. All Chiba can do is watch him get taken away. Chiba asks if the thug was cursed, but Margaret says, no, it was purification. It seems like the sword was finally released, but for some reason, it disappeared again. Paris isn't in any condition to talk. Still, he thanks Chiba for saving him, but Chiba says it was actually the other way around. Paris admits he should have called the police instead of trying to fight. Feeling a little awkward, Chiba quietly thanks him for stepping in. Paris tries to get excited again about karaoke, but Chiba tells him to take care of his injured face first. Suddenly, Margaret pulls out her sword and strikes Paris. Before Chiba can react, she explains, she erased his memory because he saw too much. Now Paris looks even more confused than before. Margaret says she wants to make sure no witnesses are left behind.